Guess who's back?
Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to get into our Dallas Cowboys season review, the 2019 season. We're past it, but we got to go over some things before we get into the new year. But before we do that, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you like Dallas Cowboys content such as this or just NFL content in general, subscribe. The next series of videos that we're going to be doing, our next big series, is going to be a division by division breakdown leading up to training camp. So stay tuned for that. Every NFL team will be featured in that. So the 2019 season, let's get into it. Obviously we have a lot of thoughts. One thing I do want to mention is the last time that we did one of these season reviews was the 2016 season, the rookie year of Dak and Zeke. Of course, the incredible run. So the following season, 2017, didn't go so good. This year didn't go so good. So hopefully this next year will go good. It's an even year, new coach, new everything, but we'll get into that. Starting off, Week 1, Cowboys versus Giants. The Cowboys win 35-17. I think this was the expected outcome pretty much all around. The Giants had a rookie quarterback starting, and we were all really interested to see, I think, what the Cowboys offense was going to look like with Kellen Moore stepping in as OC, and we immediately saw positive signs of life and change. The Cowboys, I believe, on motion, they were above 60%. They were second in the NFL after the Week 1. I believe that the Ravens were number 1, and in Week 1 they completely demolished the Dolphins, which we'll get into. The Cowboys did later on. Yeah. RJ, got a little bit of thoughts about this one?
Yeah, it expected how I thought it was going to be. I actually predicted the score and wrote them down 42-17. I was one score off. That's how confident I was coming into this season as far as the roster they had put together and everything. But as my friends had all told me, Jason Garrett is still y'all's head coach, and that turned out to be right. And real quick note, in Week 1, play action percentage 46.9. So I'll run through that as we go through each game.
So in that Giants game, another thing is that I feel like every weapon got used. Blake Jarwin scored a touchdown on a seam route that was wide open. Gallup, of course, got involved. Cooper had a great game. Even Tony Pollard, the rookie running back, he got involved. Zeke had a great game. And then, of course, the guy who was the engineer of it all, Dak, came out and had probably the best Week 1 by a quarterback other than Lamar Jackson. So great start to the season, and that continued into Week 2. The Cowboys beat the Redskins in Washington 31-21. Again, we saw everything that we saw against the Giants, a lot of motion. The deep bomb to Devin Smith that Dak threw, that's the one play that stands out to me the most. They pretty much dominated that game after the second half, coming out of halftime, and they just took over, and the Redskins really didn't have a chance in that one. Again, another team that was kind of searching for their starter. I think Case Keenum was the starter then, and they rotated through many quarterbacks. So if you don't have consistency at quarterback, you can't really expect more than negative results. But I think these first group of games, all Cowboys fans were saying these first three is a cakewalk, and the reason that we were talking about that is because of the Zeke holdout. Zeke was holding out before the season, and he wanted to be the highest paid running back, and I was in the camp, and I believe RJ was too. Don't pay him, we have Tony Pollard. We drafted him in the 4th round. Let's see what he's got. He showed juice in the preseason. We can win these first 3 games and really put the onus on Zeke to show up and, play on his current contract, which is what I would have preferred to happen, and it didn't. Zeke showed up the week of Week 1 and played for the Cowboys, and they really just ran through these first 3 games. The Dolphins, of course, are one of the worst teams in the NFL. They destroyed them at home 31-6. Again, you're seeing all the signs that you saw against the Giants and the Redskins, all the motion, everyone getting involved. It was beautiful to watch.
So against the Redskins, the play action was 39.4, and then you just want to touch on the Dolphins?
Yeah, what was the Dolphins?
It was 32.4.
Okay, so you're starting to see a slow decline in the usage of it.
But it's staying above 30.
In the Dolphins game, and in these first 3 games, period, you saw Dak taking a lot more chances and deep shots than you did in his previous years. Against the Dolphins, it did catch him a couple times, but like he said after the game, post-game, he said, I was being greedy. And I think at a certain point, they realized we're we're playing against an inferior opponent. Let's try and pull out all the stops and try some new things maybe. And but they still got a dominant victory. So like I said, those first 3 games were the ones that we all had marked as cakewalks, and the real season started against the Saints. And something that wasn't expected is that Drew Brees wasn't going to play in this game against the Cowboys. It was in New Orleans. Of course, the Cowboys beat the Saints in that awesome Thursday night game in 2016 or 2017 actually. And everyone was or 2018, I'm sorry, and everyone was thinking, okay, well, the Cowboys had the blueprint to beat the Saints. Can they do it again? And then with Brees out and Teddy Bridgewater sliding in, I said, if the Cowboys lose this game, it's going to be on them. And that's pretty much what happened, man. The final score was 12-10. I think in this one, man, it was the start of what you saw of Jason Garrett rearing his head and holding the team back. Yeah. All that pre-snap motion, all the play action, everything was gone. It was, we're going to pound Zeke into the line of scrimmage, and he's going to try and win the game. And I believe Zeke finished the game with like 60-something rushing yards in that one, maybe less.
They did a good job balling him up, and the play action dropped all the way down to 20%, and the motion and stuff also dropped down, and he ended up losing the game. But I want to touch on one big point in the game. With 5:29 left in the game, you had all 3 timeouts. The score was 12-10. You're at 4th and 2 on your 17-yard line. I really thought about all the scenarios and stuff very, very quickly, and I told my dad, you have to go for this right here. This is pretty much the ball game. First of all, you ended up, well, I'll tell you how it played out. The Saints punted with 1:45 left. We had no timeouts left. We got the ball back at our own 14 with no timeouts and 1:39 left to go to try to march down the field with the score 12-10. Now, let's say if you did go for it, and Dallas's percentage as far as going for it on 4th and short in the Dak and Zeke era, as far as I can recall, the percentage was better than field goal percentages since it had gotten moved back to the 30-yard line. So that's like in itself, that's like you have to go for it. And your defense had only given up 12 points throughout the entire game. If you do go for it and get it, you still have all 3 timeouts. You're driving the field. You're going to go score, and you can score with a field goal and take the lead. If you don't get the ball, your defense is only allowed 12 points. New Orleans can only gain how many first downs from the 17-yard line? 1. So even if they do score a field goal, a 1-score game is still a 1-score game technically, even though it's a touchdown now. But if they do end up scoring a touchdown, which is going to make the score 19-10, you're still in a better situation mathematically to come back, considering you're going to have all 3 timeouts. You're going to have more time on the clock also, and you're going to get better field position. I mean, if you're a head coach in the football league and you have guys up, if I thought of this within that small amount of time, it's like, why couldn't you have somebody advising you there to go for it? So I felt like Dallas lost the game right there in itself.
Game management is something that people have always brought up with Jason Garrett. One bright spot in this game that I wanted to point out, and he was a bright spot that unfortunately won't be with the team in 2020. Robert Quinn had a great game in this one. He made some great plays in the 4th quarter to keep the Cowboys in position to win, but unfortunately I think coaching was the thing that really kept them out of winning that game. But at this point, a quarter of the way into the season, they are 3-1, which, I mean, that's great. We expected them to be 1 win better than that, but moving on to the next game, like we said, the season gets started. The Packers at home, and at this point, the Packers, they had a pretty good record, but what they were showing wasn't like they were winning in dominant fashion.
No. And it wasn't like Rodgers was dominating either.
Yeah, it was more like they would. Aaron Jones would have a good game here and there, and they would just get by. Rodgers would make a play, the play when they needed it. Kind of just not depending on something other than Rodgers, which, I mean, that works for them, but it didn't work in the long run. But anyway, the Packers just completely run over the Cowboys. It was very similar to the Rams playoff game, the divisional round in the year previous. Aaron Jones went off, scoring 3 touchdowns. They couldn't stop him. And on offense, I mean, it was just, they made great plays. It just didn't come together quick enough.
Dallas had actually 563 yards of offense this game, and I felt like Amari's early drop that led into the interception that really just started the game off bad. You ended up turning the ball over 3 times. I think only one of them was Dak's fault. He thought the guy covering the running back would stay on him. He ended up coming off and sinking underneath. I think it was a crossing route or a hook route and picking Dak off. There was a PI call that wasn't. I mean, there was a obvious PI on Gallup that wasn't called. But I felt like overall, I mean, if that from the get-go, if Amari doesn't drop that ball, it's not all his fault, whatever. But it was just a tone setter for as far as Green Bay getting momentum in Cowboy Stadium, which they seem to always do.
Drops were a big recurring narrative throughout this season that will pop up and kind of doom the Cowboys in certain games, and this was kind of the start of it. Amari did make that amazing catch and spin move for a touchdown. Gallup had some great catches. I mean, I think another recurring theme is that this Cowboys wide receiver group, they excelled and exceeded expectations, but man, their highs were their highs were high and their lows were low, and you saw it in this game a lot. Moving on to the next one, the Cowboys and the Jets. Man, the Jets, obviously, they were one of the worst teams in the league. This was kind of a trap game, really. It was at the Jets. The big story coming in was that Amari Cooper was dealing with the foot injury.
And the thigh.
And pretty much, I think it was his entire left leg.
Yeah.
I mean, he played through it multiple times in the season, but he got through the first series, and then that was it for him in the game. And then after that, man, it was just drop central. Devin Smith had critical drops. Michael Gallup, this was probably his worst game of the season. Dak couldn't really count on anybody. Really, Zeke was the one that was getting most involved in the passing game, but Zeke in the passing game, he's not the shiftiest guy. He's not the best route runner. He's pretty much a catch and that's it guy. He's not going to make anybody miss, so they could only get so far with that. It came down to the end on a 4th and 2, and they called a quarterback draw, and great players make great plays in big situations, and Jamal Adams just read the play perfectly and stopped it, and that killed the Cowboys' chances right there. But before that sequence, getting all the way down the field, again, game management comes in. The Cowboys have I believe they have all their timeouts at a point, and it was a third down that the player didn't get out of bounds, so they were going to go for it on a 4th down.
Oh yes.
Which there was plenty of time left. There was over 2 minutes left on the clock, and Jason Garrett calls a timeout where he could have just used the 2-minute warning.
Yeah.
And that kind of pretty much doomed their chances after not getting the 4th down. They weren't able to have all 3 timeouts to stop the Jets on the other end to get the ball back, because there was plenty of time to do that, which put the game on that one critical 4th down, and they lost it. The Jets, post-game, Sam Darnold said, look, the Cowboys, they're going to do what they're going to do on defense, and you just got to go out there. I mean, pretty much saying a second-year quarterback is saying, we know what they're going to do. I can read it. I just got to go out there and execute, and that's pretty sad. Yeah,
and that's what they did on the big play to Robbie Anderson for a 92-yard touchdown on just a little post-shot play kind of down the middle. I think Heath, again, a little predictability again, too. There was a tight end, 2 wide receivers to one side, and Heath is obviously cheated over to that side. But when you have Robbie Anderson on the other side, it's like you would think, that guy's a speedster. He's got a good shot, but Chris Richard and those guys, they wanted them to play a certain way and just be bland with it, be upfront with it, and it didn't pay off. And this was also during the broadcast. This is when I kind of started feeling like, oh man, like God damn it. Tony says Garrett's hands are all over this offense, the blueprint. When Tony said that, I was just like, oh man, like that's not good.
And we heard about the things of Tony Romo getting a play called in and calling a complete audible, changing the play over the years, and him kind of engineering the offense to his liking rather than Garrett's. And I mean, since he was a rookie, he's made a lot of audibles and changes, but you could definitely see that there were games, especially on the road, where Garrett's influence on Kellen Moore's offense was way more conservative than they were at home with all the shifting and the motion, and it got him to a 3-3 record 6 games into the season after a hot 3-win streak. You're on a 3-loss streak. And then guess what? The Eagles are coming in town, the division rival, and this is for the division lead. And I think it was this was a game where everybody was kind of negative going into it. Obviously, you're going down 3 losses. The Eagles are looking like the better team at that point. You see the highs of the Cowboys offense, but it's not consistent. And consistency wasn't something that they found all year.
And there was a beautiful play design, especially the one with Tavon with getting a mismatch. Kellen knows that the Eagles like to blitz on third down, bring heavy pressure. He motioned Tavon in, kicked him back out, really got Skandrick to run across the field, and then when Tavon swung back out, it was like he was dead to right. He had his man dead to rights, and it was just a great design play. And it was just like, we've seen what y'all can do, and we've seen y'all do that. And Troy Aikman said it later in the game, later on in the season, the Rams game. This Dallas team can beat anybody when they play the best. And people say, "Oh, you can say no." You couldn't say that with anybody. We could beat anybody when Dallas played at their best. But it was like they could just never put it together. And I think as we go along, continue this season, it was just due to the ignorance and just from the head coaching and just not putting your guys in a position when you've obviously shown it, and then it's just inconsistent from week to week. It's like something's going on here.
So this is week 7, October 20th. It was my dad's birthday. We were both at this game, and we were just like, man, this is the game to go to, because this is kind of for halfway point for the marbles. And we were both just like, hey, we'll see what happens. I don't think we were really positive about it. But, man, starting from the get, the Cowboys, they intercept Carson Wentz. They strip sack him. DeMarcus Lawrence strip sacks him. And that was pretty much just it. Every time the Cowboys had the ball, they were able to capitalize and put points on the board. The final score was 37-10. Zeke and Dak. I mean, I would say this was Zeke's best game of the season.
He always seemed to have good games throughout his career against the Eagles also so far. Up
to this point, we hadn't seen that elite Zeke that we were looking for. But, man, in this one, he was just running through guys. That play where he ran over Malcolm Jenkins was awesome. Dak ran over somebody on the sideline. I mean, they were just having their way. I remember Amari Cooper's double move on Rasul Douglas.
Yes, man. Yeah, that was beautiful.
Route.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just play after play, both on offense and defense. They were an unstoppable force in this game, and the Eagles had no answers, absolutely nothing. And it's just like, what the heck is this? After 3 straight losses against a division opponent, they're going to go and put up 37, hang 37 on them, their highest score of the season. It was incredible, unexpected, and going into the bye week, I mean, there were signs of life, but you're still like, well, I mean, which Cowboys team are we going to get? Are we going to get this Cowboys every week, or are we going to get the up and down Cowboys that lost 3 straight?
Oh, and then touch bases. In the Green Bay game, the play action percentage was 17.6. The Jets, 14.3. And against Philly, it went back up to 29.
So, I mean, there's the trend. I mean, it went down, and went back up, and they were able to pull out a big victory to take the division lead. Then in the bye week, there was big rumors about Jamal Adams possibly getting traded to the Cowboys. Yeah. We were all kind of, crossing our fingers. It didn't go through. I think that would have been a big boost to the team, a la last season, Marty Cooper coming over on the bye week. But, again, it didn't happen. But coming off the bye, they had another cakewalk game that we would, pretty much write up as a win against the Giants again in New York. It didn't start off good, though. Dak's first pass, the very first play of the game, was an interception that set up the Giants in scoring range. I believe they only came away with the field goal, though. And the Cowboys ended up scoring 37 again in back-to-back games. 37-18 was the final score. Again, the Giants, they dealt with injuries in their receiver core all year. Rookie quarterback. Their coach got fired. They were not a very good team. But again, the test starts back up again. They played the Minnesota Vikings at home, and I think this might be okay. I was gonna say the most embarrassing game of the season, but it may be the third most embarrassing game because there's a couple. But as far as coaching goes, these were some of the biggest gaffes, and this was a perfect encapsulation of all of the Cowboys 8-8 season.
Yeah.
The good, the bad, the freaking ugly. It was all there. Bad play, bad coaching, everything.
Dak was having the game of his life this game, and I just remember like Zimmer was throwing the kitchen sink at him as far as look wise, everything go, and Dak was just operating back there. He was executing. He was just a freaking neurosurgeon back there, and
guys right in his face, taking him down. Amari Cooper was making sideline catch after sideline catch. I mean, he was just dotting them up. And the Cowboys defense couldn't stop. It was like the Packers game all over again. They could not stop the run to save their lives. Kirk Cousins, I don't know how many just plain out drop back passes or shotgun attempts he took, but it wasn't very much. Everything was off the play action.
And when he did have to throw, again, the simplicity from the defense, it was just a quick third down route to Diggs or a little crossing pattern. It's like, these guys and their comfortability that they have with some of them, it's like, why not try something different, take them away real quick, and it just didn't happen. It was just so simplistic, and like Darnold said in the beginning of the season, Dallas is going to do what they're going to do, and it's just your job to execute, and that's not really how things should be.
So it was back and forth the entire game and got down into the fourth quarter, and the Cowboys actually took a lead, but the defense quickly let the Vikings score, and they took the 28-24 lead. So it came down to a final drive for the Cowboys, and Dak was surgical. Big shout out to David Hellman. It was perfect timing. He did a whole Twitter thread yesterday about this game of Dak's moves down the field, and he got them all the way within striking distance. I believe it was within the 15-yard line, starting all the way back inside the 10. And this is where coaching comes up. They ran the ball
back-to-back times on second and third down after they had just got I want to say 7 yards on first down or something like that and stuff. And at this point, yes, you have Zeke there, and yes, you'd like to go to him, but when Dak is playing the game of his life, it's like you don't take the ball out of the guy's hands.
And they pounded Zeke against the Vikings defensive line, who at that point had done a great job of bottling him up. So I don't know what the thought process was there, and even the Cowboys players didn't know, because Travis Frederick, after the third down run, just looked back and screamed at the sideline, "What are we doing?" They got the audio of it, and he's just like, he was just flabbergasted, and they did not convert, and the Cowboys lost the game 28-24. Another big point in that game in the fourth quarter was the botched punt return by Tavon Austin. And I'm saying Tavon Austin was the player receiving the punt, but this was about coaching. So Tavon had probably at least 20 yards of green grass in front of him before a defender got there, and he just let the ball drop and Fair caught it. Supposedly, the special teams coach told him to take it out, but Garrett was the one that overruled and told him to fair catch it, and that was...
Yeah, there was a big thing, a big miscommunication after this game, and a big thing about that. I remember that now. And also, after the game, I think it was maybe Griffin, or I can't remember which one, the guy, defensive line guy, said it for the Vikings, we knew what they were going to do right there, and the type of plays they like to run in that situation. When Zeke got down, they ran the ball back-to-back times, and then ended up having to go for it on fourth down and lost the game. And it's just another thing, just teams are telling you that they know what you're going to do, and it's just
And that was a similar sentiment that the Saints did. I believe it was Cameron Jordan said something similar after the Saints beat them. So, again, another disappointing loss, but you saw the best of Dak in that game, and disappointing because you're at 500 again. But there's another game coming, and they played at the Lions. The Lions were starting Jeff Driscoll at quarterback. Matthew Stafford was out. And man, they win this game 35-27, but it was ugly and it didn't look good. They let Bo Scarborough run all over them. Jeff Driscoll had a great game. I mean, it was close.
And they were doing things for Jeff that was look, this is what they're going to do, and we're going to go out there and we're going to make it really easy for you, and you're going to be able to complete these easy passes. I remember from the first play of the game is they had a double stack lined up on both sides, and they just kind of let the first guy kind of run off, and then the second guy just have a two-way go, and it was the defense that they're going to play, so it's just a two-way go. You choose, and it's going to be an easy throw, and from there, they kind of showed the same stuff, and they were making things easy for their quarterback because we were making things easy for him, and that's how it ended up being a tie game, honestly.
In this game, Amari Cooper, he had a quiet day, but Michael Gallup exploded in this one, and he did that quite a few times in the season. They were able to take the Lions out, but I think this was one of those ones where you're already looking ahead to next week. The Cowboys need a statement game beyond that Eagles game right before the bye week, and they're going to New England. And at this point in the season, New England wasn't having a great season. Yes, they were winning, but the division was weak as usual, and they look like a weaker team. Which led to some of the things that happened in the offseason.
Dallas gave New England this game. And honestly, this game was lost before they even flew to New England. And if you remember why, the forecast called for rain and like a monsoon throughout the whole entire week. Dallas did not practice outdoors one time that week. They also didn't do any wet ball drills supposedly during that. And that's just another, like, you're so incompetent as a head coach, and just it's your job to get your guys ready and know stuff like that, and it didn't happen.
Dak didn't even know if he wanted to play with gloves or without gloves.
And he was going back and forth throughout the game with that. And that's not, I mean, is that kind of his fault? I mean, yeah, there's some responsibility on it, but at the end of the day, it's your head coaches and your guys, your staff, to put your players in the best position to win.
I'd put the glove situation on Dak, but the wet ball thing and the practicing indoors, that's just ridiculous. And then you hear Rob Gronkowski after the game say, or before the game, that Bill Belichick's going to take his guys into the elements every week to have them prepared. And they made just enough plays in this game to beat the Cowboys. Once Dak did get his glove or non-glove situation handled, he started dialing up the Patriots, but it was just too little too late. Zeke didn't have a very good game. He made a few runs here and there. Amari Cooper, again, didn't show up really in this one. He was going against Stephon Gilmore, and they lose 13-9.
Guys, and when we're going through the season, besides like really the Green Bay game where they just got thrashed, there was points in every single game where, yes, players made mistakes. Yes. But if it's just down to a decision from the coaching staff and game management and stuff, they could have already had 3 more wins on their thing. They're a good staff away from being a 12-13 win team every single year when you're inconsistent like this throughout the year. So the next game, 3 days later against the Bills, on Thanksgiving Day. Let me touch base. In this Patriots game, there was a huge 3rd and 20. They ended up getting converted, and I think a play later down the line that was a huge 3rd down. They ended up getting completed to Edelman. You're leaving Jordan Lewis one-on-one. And that's his favorite target. And yes, you believe in your guys, you believe in your scheme, in that cover one scheme. But again, your Edelman's one of the best slot receivers in the league, and you're not giving your guy help in key situations like that. So in the beginning of the Bills game, it started off great. Went up 7-0 with play action play to Jason Witten. And this was a swing. The Bills were 3rd and 10 from the 2-yard line. They're 0-2. They punt the ball. We get the ball probably like at the 45, 50, or maybe even closer, get a good return, and you're already in scoring range again to go 14-0 right off the get-go. They don't double Beasley, and it's a key 3rd down play. Again, you're not giving your guy. I can understand playing those 1st, 2nd down, but when it comes down to critical downs, and Josh Allen's favorite target, especially the guy that you was just on your freaking team last year, and how great he is in those situations, and you don't give him help, you don't do anything to combat that, it's like, man. So that was a key from when the Bills converted that thing, we lost.
Yeah, Jordan Lewis, I mean, he got hung out to dry in this game. I mean, Beasley had his way with the defense, and the Bills had their way with the Cowboys. I think this was probably Dak's worst game of the season. They lose 26-15 on Thanksgiving. It was embarrassing. I think by halftime you kind of already saw the writing on the wall. They just couldn't get anything going in this game. Real depressing on a national spotlight, and the Bills players, making the most of their victory and egging on the Cowboys afterwards with stuff on the sideline and stuff. But man, okay, there were bright spots at a certain point, but man, the Cowboys, they go on another 3-game losing streak, because next week they play the Bears on Thursday night again, and they lose to the lowly Bears with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback, 31-24. And
you're seeing a trend with these young quarterbacks having their way with Dallas's defense. I don't think Dallas didn't have bad players on their defense. It's just a matter of putting the guys in position to do their best, and that's not what they were doing. And they were making things harder on their players. And there was a key point in this game. It was 7-10 with 5 minutes left in the second quarter before the half, and there was a fourth and I think I want to say it was it must be, I think it was 4th and 4 from the 25-yard line. You had Brett Maher, who hasn't been good all season. 7-10. From mid-range, he was horrible. I don't think he made a field goal from mid-range all season. In between, I can't remember the.
It was 45 and under.
Yeah, 45 and under, something like that.
0 for 9 or something like that.
And you choose to kick the ball. The Bears get the ball back, they go up 17-7. It's a 10-point swing leading into half, and that was just right there. Another key, having too much belief in, we believe in our guy. He'll go. What has made you think that throughout the entire season? Nothing.
Another thing that we haven't brought up yet is that going into this year, the Jason Garrett, this was his final year of his contract. The Cowboys could have extended him. They decided to let him play out basically a franchise tag year, a contract year. So they kind of knew going into the season that Jason was going to have to prove it. So I just can't believe how stick to your guns Jason was throughout the whole year, but I guess that kind of this season was the perfect example or result that you would expect from a Jason Garrett team. They finish off 8-8, and like RJ said, just trusting my guy. This is my guy. We're gonna go line up, and you may know what we're gonna do, but we're better than you. We gotta execute. You just hear the same thing over and over again. I'm going to be honest with you. At the halftime of the Bills game, I was checked out. The rest of the season, I was just like, I'm going to watch the game. I was like, I think we watched the Bears game together, and we were like, everyone was like, we should win this game. We should win. And I was just like, but are they?
Yeah.
But are they? Yeah, they should win the game. I remember saying that a lot. Yeah, they should win this game, but are they? And they didn't. They lost to the Bears. And it's frustrating. Another 3-game losing streak after the one earlier in the season. And then they're going against the Rams then the following week, who the Rams still had a little bit of playoff hopes at this point, and so did the Cowboys, just a shred of it for the division. So if the Cowboys wanted to stay alive, they were going to have to beat the Rams at home. And again, going back to the Rams, whenever we played the Rams in previous years, they shredded us in the playoffs. They shredded us at home the 2 years prior to that in 2017. So far going into this year, again, not optimistic. But, man, it was like the Eagles game all over again. What was the play-action percentage in this one? I'm very interested.
This one was, let me see. This was versus Ram. 33.3.
So 33.3, almost going back to what it was early in the season, and they destroy the Rams 44-21. Again, another game where they could just do whatever they want. Tavon Austin scores on a long touchdown. Everybody got involved. Tony Pollard, man, he ran his balls off in this one, running over guys. Honestly, probably played better than Zeke in this game. Dak had a great game, but in a win like this, there was also some bad, and that was that Dak got tackled by Clay Matthews on a run and led to his shoulder injury, which carried over into the next game, which was even more critical. But looking at this Rams game, it was a big time victory, the most points that they scored in the whole season. But again, it's so frustrating because
that's the game when Troy said when this Dallas team plays at its best, they can beat anybody, and it was true. And you really saw it all put together. Again, you got everybody involved. As far as defense-wise goes, Goff really hadn't been having a good year and stuff, but it was still the scheme that really killed them last year, and they were able to shut it down. So I don't know what happened as far as defensively, what they did different, because they really didn't do anything different through every single game. But as far as offensively goes, they got everybody involved. So it's like there's the blueprint for y'all for how to go about winning games and stuff. You got to get everybody involved first, and let Kellen do his creativity and just let everything roll.
So they get that big victory, and then of course it's the showdown at the end of the season. The NFL's really good at scheduling these division games at the end, so they really count. And it's at Philadelphia. This is for the division, basically. But the big storyline, of course, is Dak did finish that Rams game with the shoulder injury, and it didn't look like anything really happened. But then you start hearing, oh, Dak's shoulder is a little bit more injured than we thought. Oh, Dak didn't participate in practice on Wednesday. Dak didn't participate in practice on Thursday. Dak participated with practice on Friday, but Friday's only a walkthrough, so he didn't throw at all before this game until they got to pregame warm-ups. And it showed. He was not his usual accurate self, because up to this point, Dak is having a really, really great season overall. Like I said, he had a bad game against the Bills, but before that, you couldn't really peg any of these losses on Dak. But in this one, he just wasn't on, and it had to have been the shoulder. And the Eagles weren't a better team, but they were able to get a little bit more out of their offense than we were. Zeke, complete opposite from the first Eagles game. He wasn't able to do anything that completely shut him down. So Brett Maher missed some critical field goals in this game too. We haven't mentioned him enough, but man, he screwed the Cowboys over in multiple situations, or him and Jason Garrett.
And another thing too, Dallas was ranked 32 dead last in special teams, and especially with Maher, and somebody should have lost their job at least halfway through the season when it comes to that. And you get a guy like, man, when did we get Kyle Horvath? Oh, the very last.
I believe it was towards the end. Actually, it was in the Patriots game. Yeah, they had him against the Patriots. So at this point, they actually did have Kyle Horvath. I take that back. So at that point, they had already gotten rid of.
Actually, Horvath was the only person who scored all of our points. Yeah.
Against the Eagles?
Against the Eagles, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Well, like I said, I checked out after the Bills game, and it's depressing talking about these games, but, you know.
And it's even more depressing when I saw this, and I was like, oh gosh, I remember as soon as this game ended, I just turned off the projector, took it off, and as soon as it, boom, done. I don't know, Jason Garrett had never won a win-or-go-home game throughout his entire career with Dallas in division like this when the division's on the line. So it's like, why did we think anything was going to be different? Why did I even have a little bit of hope? Like, it's just a fandom or whatever and stuff. But when you really look at it, no, it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen. Not with this staff.
So the Cowboys lose that game 17-9, and going into the final week 17, it was the Redskins at home, and they still did have that minute shred of hope to make the playoffs. If the Eagles lost to the Giants and the Cowboys beat the Redskins in Week 17, then the Cowboys would win the division and go on to the playoffs, and the Eagles would stay home. Obviously, that didn't happen. The Eagles beat the Giants, and the Cowboys found out before their game ended. But the Cowboys beat the Redskins 47-16. Dak had a great game. Everyone had a great game, but it was just like that. You know, who cares really? Like it was nothing. Yeah. But they finished the season in Jason Garrett fashion, 8-8, Mr. 8-8. Him and Jeff Fisher, Mr. 7-9, and Jason Garrett, Mr. 8-8. A few things that I want to highlight that we've heard come out now that we're in the off season is earlier this week, George Iloka had the interview with fellow YouTubers, Law Nation, and I believe I can't remember. But it was Law Nation was on the show with one of his YouTuber buddies, and they interviewed George Iloka, and the story goes that, of course, Iloka, he was a free agent signing last season. He didn't make the team. He was cut, but maybe we know a little bit more about why he was cut. But anyway, they were in practice, and in a cover 3 shell, Iloka started creeping down to kind of try and disguise the defense, and Chris Richard yelled at him and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he said, told him, "I'm trying to creep down." I was like, "Get back to your spot," and got pissed off at him. And Iloka in interviews is like, "Oh, so you want them to know that we're in cover 3," which is very telling to, if you look back, the Jets game, the Lions game, the Bears game. I mean, they clearly played inferior quarterbacks to Dak Prescott. And I mean, it's not all about the quarterbacks, but man, these guys were bottom of the barrel quarterbacks, the bottom 5 type quarterbacks in the whole NFL, and they shredded your defense. So Chris Richard, he was basically the de facto defensive coordinator. Rod Marinelli was the other guy that was running the show on that end, and of course he loves to pick his small defensive tackles, and the Cowboys couldn't stop the run. We saw the reaction to that in the offseason moves that they did this year. Special teams coach was his first time coaching special teams. He was basically a scout before this, so first time coaching, going out and coaching special teams. And what was the result? Like RJ said before, the 32nd ranked special teams unit. Brett Maher was completely terrible. Complete ass is what I wanted to say. I'm just going to say he was complete ass. And I remember in the Eagles game, he hit that 60-yarder, and I was just like, I don't give a crap. This guy can't hit the basic ones. If Jason Garrett didn't know he could hit 60-yarders, I'd rather them not attempt 60-yarders. Go for it on 4th down. That's more likely to result in success than hitting a 60-yard field goal.
Exactly like what I touched on in the Bears game when you had that 4th and 5 from the 25-yard line. You choose to kick the field goal, and boom, the Bears go down and score, and it's a 10-point swing.
I think it was like a 55-yarder in that game. So, look, man, maybe Jason Garrett didn't get to pick his staff, but I think he did because he got to make all the other choices that he wanted to. Kellen Moore wouldn't have been kept on Mike McCarthy's staff if he didn't see something in him that showed promise. So that tells me that he was hindered by Garrett, that he was held back by Garrett in certain situations. Overall, look, this was a terrible, terrible season. Yeah, other teams go 4-12, 1-16, but 8-8 is just that mediocrity that people have been calling the Cowboys over the years. And
guys, this was the best roster in my opinion that they had put together in a very, very long time, and I felt very, very good. I even flew out to California and went to training camp because I wanted to see. I felt, man, this was a really good team. They've got guys in their third years that are really ready to contribute and stuff, and this is a very good roster. And all my friends said, Jason Garrett is still your head coach. And I said, no. And it turns out Jason Garrett was still our head coach. And that's what happened. It was a very disappointing season. Probably was the most disappointing season in the history of the Cowboys. As far as we've been alive.
As far as we've been alive?
Besides 2007. It was more disappointing than the 2007 one.
I might agree with you just because of the expectations that were set from the previous year, and because that stretch of 3 8-8 seasons that they had with Garrett and Romo, it all came down to the last game. So the freaking Cowboys, man, they give you that little bit of hope at the end. So you don't have the final doom all the way until the end. This one, you saw all the super, super highs, and like RJ said, this was a very talented team. Some of those teams back in those other 8-8 seasons weren't very good.
No.
Romo got them by, and they're explosive
Those teams
offense.
were probably like 3-win teams at the best.
So this one was like...
And like I was saying earlier, I was touching on, guys, they were two choices a game away in some of these really close games of game management-wise goes of being put into better position to win these games. 13-9 against the Patriots. 1 score loss versus the Bears. 1 score loss versus the Vikings. 1 score loss versus the Saints. That's what, 4 games right there? 3-4 games right there? I mean, that's a world of a difference, man.
And you got to think with some of the special teams gaps that they made. I mean, that might be at least 1 or 2 wins.
If you address the Mount situation earlier, it's like how you could be so incompetent as a head coach when you're going into your last season. You're on your last deal. It's do or die, and that's one of the reasons why we were so much more confident. It's like Steven has said before. It's like during the offseason, Jason, everybody's backs are against the wall this year. It's not just Jason's. Everybody is. Mm-hmm. So it's like seeing that. It's like, okay, last year when they were 3-5 and their backs were against the wall, they just a whole different mode just set. They clicked, and it's like, okay, as a person, when your livelihood is on the line here, okay, like yes, his back is against the wall. He doesn't have a new contract. He's going to be coaching for something. He's going to be balls out, balls to the wall. Some of those decisions, like I said, were very just concerning and ended up being detrimental to the outcomes of the games. We're not going for it on 4th and short, trusting in your guy. I will never understand it. I won't.
But that's who Garrett is, and he wrote it down to the grave. With all the bad that was this season, we finally got what people have been asking for since probably 2010, which is the firing of Jason Garrett, which hooray, we have something new. Something new. I mean, it almost became like you could script out the season at a certain point. You could script out who's going to make the team. You could predict who they're going to draft. And already we started seeing changes in that. And that's going to be our next video. We're going to get into the off season as a whole because...
Yeah, we'll review it. They went 8-8. They lost to the Eagles in that do-or-die game, but we got rid of Jason Garrett and we got CeeDee Lamb.
Yep, if we hadn't lost that game, it would have been in reverse, and the Eagles probably would have gotten CeeDee Lamb. But like I said, with the bad, there's always good. So hopefully, going into the 2020 season, we will get a different outcome. But that has been our season review for 2019. Again, depressing, sad, not very good, but we're hoping for better, and it is an even year. 2016, 2018, and hopefully 2020, the Cowboys will make the playoffs.
And each year, Dallas has really made the playoffs and just like jump-started. They've had their rookie first-round pick or rookie contribute highly. Mm-hmm. And this year with CeeDee, I think you see the same thing again.
So that has been the video. If you like the content, please comment, leave a comment below what you thought about the Cowboys season, and hit the subscribe button. It's right around this area. Stay tuned for more content as we get more into this off season. Like I said, we're going to be doing that off season review for the Cowboys next, and then we get into our division. So we'll be hitting all 32 teams. Really looking forward to whatever kind of season we get, whether we're going to be able to be in the stadium or not. I don't care. I just want to see the games. I don't care about any other sport. I just want to see football. Everything else can be damned. Just bring me the NFL games. But anyway, we appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.
Yo, I ain't here for the money, I ain't here for the fame. Though it might be nice to own a jet plane, I'ma do it all for you. Come